Here in front of me, you see I have 3 different pencils out of the variety that you have. 2H, which is the hardest leaded pencil you have, HB, which is somewhere in the middle, and also 6B, which is the softest leaded pencil that you can have. The differences in pencils are really going to lend themselves to allowing you to get a big range of value and shadows and lights in your drawings that you do. The 6B, as you'll be able to see, creates a very dark mark because the softer the lead is, the more lead will come off on your paper. So if you're viewing this like this is the light source here, your darkest shadows are going to be away from the light source, and that's where you would probably put a 6B, maybe a 5B, to really get a nice range of shadows in your piece. Shading things in is what's going to make them look three-dimensional as opposed to flat. You never want to leave anything completely white. Otherwise it looks very flat. So you know, if you were doing this, it's going to obviously look a little nicer and a little smoother, but for the sake of time, I'm going to rush this a little bit. So you can kind of slowly let the 6B fade away. You could then transition into a 5B or a 4B. Eventually you'll get to the more medium grade pencils, like this is the HB here. So you can see that the closer I get to the light, the lighter it's going to get. It kind of takes on the shape of whatever it is you are drawing. Eventually moving to the 2H, which is the hardest leaded pencil. You can see it makes a lighter mark. And the only parts you would leave white on a piece are the things that you want to look like the highlights. Also, eventually you're going to do your cast shadows that go in the opposite direction and will anchor your piece to the page. These pencils can be sharpened not just in the pencil sharpener, but also on a sandpaper block like this. You just basically drag your pencil along the sandpaper block and you twist it, and it will come to a nice point. These sandpaper blocks have multiple pieces of sandpaper, so they last quite a long time. Aside from the pencils, there are a range of other supplies you'll be able to use. One of those things is actually a tortillon, and it's something that you're going to use to blend the pencils into the surface of the paper. Tortillon looks like this. It's just basically a tightly rolled piece of paper, and you essentially use the tip in order to take the graphite and grind it into the surface of the paper. This produces a very soft looking drawing, and it's just basically a matter of personal preference. So here you can see I scribbled a little bit with a 2H and also a 6B, 2 very different pencils. When you take the tortillon and you kind of rub over top of the surface of the graphite, it takes all the little pieces of graphite, it pushes them into the surface of the paper, and it makes it look very soft and kind of cloudy. So it's just up to you whether or not you want to see no white showing through or a little bit of texture showing through in your drawings. Some people like a very soft drawing, some people like a very dark drawing. My favorite thing about a tortillon, though, is probably that you can use it actually as a drawing utensil. So right here, I scribbled rather darkly with a 6B pencil. You can pick up that graphite from that scrap piece of paper that you have and really get it loaded on the tip of your tortillon. At this point, you can then sort of use it like a drawing utensil. Because it has the graphite on, that graphite's just going to come off and it's going to land on your paper. So what happens is you can have these little areas of shadow. You can push a little harder and get some darker shadows. I use this primarily if I'm doing sort of a landscape and I want to have some sort of cloudy area. Clouds don't have a very distinct line, so basically this compilation here of soft-looking shadows eventually looks like a cloud, as you hopefully can see here. You're also going to have a nice range of erasers that you're going to be able to use. Probably the most fun eraser that you'll be able to use is what's called a kneaded eraser, which you see here. Kneaded erasers come wrapped up in the plastic, so they look like a regular eraser, but what you do is you knead them or you press them together. Just like you would pizza dough, or if you were using clay, you can sort of press them into each other, and it looks almost like it's putty. Believe it or not, though, it is not putty, it's actually an eraser, and because you can form it into a shape, you can actually take it and work back into your drawing, and you can erase small areas. And it's a very clean eraser. It doesn't leave a lot of eraser spots all over your paper. The other thing that's great about these is if you are a really messy drawer and you get fingerprints all over your project, you can take the pencil or the eraser itself and you can rub your finger over top of the eraser and also take the eraser and rub it over top of the paper. In fact, I'm going to do that right over the clouds. You can see the clouds just going to kind of vanish. It's a very, very clean eraser, and it's a very good eraser to use to clean up your projects. The final beauty of these is that they do get really dirty, as you see here, but since they're kneaded erasers, all you need to do to make the dirtiness vanish is knead them. So you kind of pull them apart, fold them together, and eventually that graphite is just going to kind of go away and vanish, and it's going to be perfectly clean in the end. Probably your best friend if you ever make a huge mistake is this guy right here. This is called a gum eraser. It's been used quite a bit. When it's brand new, it looks kind of like a piece of caramel. If you have a major mess up, like say this 6B that I put here is hard to erase from my paper, probably the only eraser that's going to remove it is the gum eraser. These are a mess. They will leave big eraser boogies, as we call them, all over your project. So you have to kind of wipe them off a bit, but you can see here using the darkest pencil, I'm still able to erase it a good deal with that gum eraser. So that's a really great eraser. Other erasers you're going to be able to use are your standard pink pearl eraser. You kind of recognize those from your bins. It's a nice quality drawing eraser. It will do the job. Other people choose to use a drafting eraser, and there are 3 different types right here. Primarily they are white. You can see a couple of them are wrapped up in plastic when they're brand new. The Staedtler. And then the Magic Rub here is not wrapped up, but this is a really high quality eraser as well. You can kind of work into your project with the little tips and corners of this eraser as well. Lastly, you're going to be able to use stick erasers. There's 2 different types. This stick eraser here is a pretty standard eraser. You may have seen one of these before. Basically, the tip of it erases. You can kind of work into your project. Use it to erase whatever part you want, and these do get dull over time, but the beauty of them is that they have this little button on the side, and you can just kind of push the button and advance the eraser when you need more. Finally, probably the most fun type is this one right here. This is a peel-off Magic Rub eraser. Even though it looks like a white colored pencil, the tip of it actually erases. So you can see if I go into my project here, I can erase this little spot, I can erase this little spot here. You really want to be careful with these because they are not cheap, but they are a great tool. Now they will get dull, but unlike a pencil, you don't want to put them in the pencil sharpener. If they get too dull, you have to actually take this little piece of string, and you need to pull it back. And there's these little perforated marks which might be hard for you to see on the pencil. You basically just want to expose one perforated mark, which I did right here, and you want to peel it back. Let's see if I can do this. And then basically you peel, peel, peel. Takes a little bit of time, but eventually it's going to, if this was totally dull, review one more segment of eraser all the way until the entire eraser is used. So I want you to try out a range of pencils and erasers and tools today and see what it is you like best that you want to use for your projects.